Welcome to the Big Byte Energy podcast. We're your host, Evangelos.
And I'm David.
And on this pod, we talk about tech, sports, and everything software engineering. And in today's episode, we're covering group projects, and in particular, what makes or breaks a successful group project, especially at university. So, David, what are group projects?
Yeah, a group project is essentially a collaborative task where people will work together to achieve a common goal. So in university, now a lot of the times it's an assignment or some sort of group documentation or presentation, which you will all present as one piece of work at the end of the end of the assignment.
And usually it's mimicking like a full software development lifecycle. And we won't dive too deep into that, but it's basically going from the stage of interviewing a specific client. This usually is your lecturer, and you're trying to get the most information you can. So when you're building the app or software, whatever you're building it to meet their goals, to meet their needs. And that usually needs the assistance of multiple people within your team. So you could have some people who are purely focused on asking the right questions, getting the right data, and then the other half of the team could be focused on developing the actual software, so writing the code, separating it into the front end and the back end. So it's a task that usually includes 4 to 5 people in my experience of group projects. So it's a lot of hands-on in terms of working within the group and achieving that goal. But why do we have group projects, especially at university?
Yeah, it's kind of just to teach people to get used to working within a team, as a software engineer, as a developer, or even just as a regular professional.
Yeah,
Majority of the time, you will work within a team to achieve one common goal, regardless of what area or business you are in. You will work as part of one team to achieve whatever the project is asking you to achieve. As well as that, again, it just mimics that real life interaction, gets you talking, gets you asking the right questions, what works for you within a team, what doesn't work for you within a team. Essentially, it's giving you the adequate skills to allow you to work efficiently and effectively in the workplace once you leave education.
yeah. I think it's the best way universities go about teaching students their soft skills, because
Mhm.
it's a little bit difficult trying to teach soft skills through lectures and books and doing their own research. I think the only way you can truly learn soft skills is by applying it in real life. So this
Oh yeah,
goes beyond just reading books. And when we're referring to soft skills, we're talking about communication, being able to work in a team, being able to emotionally manage your no manage your emotions intelligently. Um, should I put? What else would you include in that soft skills category that you need as a software engineer?
yeah. Obviously, effective communication is obviously incredibly
Yeah,
important. Being able to convey your ideas not only from a technical standpoint, but from a non-technical standpoint as well, which is actually
yeah,
something a lot of employees look for. Are you able to effectively communicate what you're attempting to do, or what you want to attempt to do,
yeah.
to people who are not as technical. So I say communication is one incredibly important one. Again,
Mhm.
something I always rave on about is your time management. How do you effectively manage your time as a team? Do you work in sprints? Do you dedicate a particular time within your calendar to achieve this work? I would also say it kind of gives you that skill of compromisation, or to be able to compromise.
Yeah,
Uh, you're not always going to get 100% what you want, and that's okay. And being able to accept that and still work to the best of your ability and effectively move on is an incredibly important skill. Because just because you didn't get your way, throwing a straw up, being angry, being difficult to work with is the worst possible outcome. So I'd say
yeah.
those are definitely some of the important skills. Yeah.
And definitely based off my experience with my internship, accountability and responsibility was definitely two as well.
That's,
Because whenever I was
yeah.
put on
Well.
a project or a specific task that I had to do, it was up to me to get it done, regardless of what challenges I may have faced, how difficult the task may have been. Sure, you can ask for help, but at the end of the day, you need to deliver something as well. So it's a great opportunity within uni to start getting used to that responsibility. Because once you get into the full time environment, once you have a task set to you, it's up to you to get it done at the end of the day. If it's not done, it's going to be on your fault. If you get it done really well, praise is going to be all down to you. So it's a great technique that universities use, I must say, to help develop students for that real world experience, especially. Is there anything else that you can relate to about how group projects helped you in your internships as well? Putting you on the spot there.
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. Well, I think in terms of group projects, I think we've covered kind of the main skills. It's so important to
Yeah,
be able to just work together,
yeah,
kind of we all know this, that teamwork aspect of group projects are so important,
mhm,
from presenting to planning to breaking up tasks to accept, etc., etc. Teamwork is the main cornerstone, is what drives, the whole idea of group projects.
yeah,
So again, kind of that being forced upon you in uni and finding your dynamic within a team and what role suits you best within the team. Another one
mm,
is incredibly important. That was a good question, though. Jeez Louise, definitely put me on the spot there, boy.
fair. But as a whole, to be fair, this is all what software engineering is. To be honest with you, you're going to be working within a team. It's a large fast that you think you're going to be in the basement coding by yourself. You're going to be working with technical people, non-technical people. And that's where the skill of communication, like you said earlier, really comes in, because sometimes you're gonna have to be able to explain a really technical concept or idea to someone who's not so technical. So someone who could be the UX designer, and you need to explain to them why their design isn't feasible for you to write as a code solution. So you need to be able to take complicated concepts and explain it to
Yeah,
non-technical people, because at the end of the day, they don't care about the technical aspects. They just care about if it can be done or not. And having the ability to do that will set you apart from especially all the other juniors applying for these early junior entry roles as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And it's funny that you relate it back to placement, because I had a manager who was so big on communication,
yeah,
like. Oh, if you wasn't straightforward to the point, none of the corporate jargon, none of
yeah,
the let's go for low hanging fruit, etc. None of that nonsense. It was straight. This is what needs to be done. This is when it'll be done. Straight. So yeah,
yeah.
communication, yeah, incredibly important.
It's crucial
But
because you
that
need
kind
to
of
be. Go on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
no,
You was
no,
gonna
no,
say.
no, no. Go on. Let's keep dropping gems, man. We gotta keep dropping gems.
Because
It don't.
the way I see communication is basically just being able to explain your ideas and your thoughts clearly. Because if you're able to do it, if you're able to present your ideas clearly to other people, it clearly shows the confidence in yourself that you know what you're doing. You understand whatever problem someone's throwing at you, and again, it just increases your competence as a whole. To be honest, like even when you're solving problems with your leak codes or you're solving problems, if you're able to communicate that problem to yourself at least, you have a ten
Mhm.
times better chance of solving whatever it is, compared to having poor communication skills where you're confusing yourself because you don't understand what you're trying to solve at the end of the day,
Mhm.
let alone someone else who you may be trying to explain the problem to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, 100%, one hundred
yeah.
percent. So that kind of
Okay.
leads us quite well into the next topic.
Uh,
Why do group projects go wrong? You
I've
want
had,
to start off?
I'll start off. Yeah, I've had my fair few of bad group projects throughout university.
Oh yeah.
And we'll cover them in this topic. So the first one usually is unequal workload. So in example to this is usually where one person has, or they may have signed up for it, you never know, but one person
Mhm.
seems to be doing a large percentage of the work. And nine times out of ten, this usually always ends bad because they either bite off more than they can chew, and when it comes to the deadline day, they have so many features or aspects of the assignment which they haven't completed, which means they're going to lose out on marks, and inevitably they're going to get a worse grade than they should. And this usually comes through a multiple of reasons. So maybe the person who's assigning the groups is a bit eager. Don't do that. Just make sure that you're assigning yourself work that you know you can complete to a high degree, and trust that your other teammates can do the work you're assigning them.
Mhm.
Um, and then I would also say a lack of leadership, I'd say, because nine times out of ten, if you're failing to equally distribute the workload, it's usually because you're a bit nervous to give people work or something along those lines. So I definitely
Mhm.
say don't be scared to give people appropriate workloads, because at the end of the day, it's a team effort. Everybody needs to put in a reasonably similar effort, regardless of the size of the team. I would say,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that would be the first one. What about you? What is the
That's
second
a
one
that's
on
a
that?
very good one, and that leads really well onto mine one, which is lack of communication and unclear expectations. So you've just
Yeah,
heard me and Evangelos rave on for about 5 minutes or so about how important communication is. And I'm going to go on about it a bit more because it is the most important aspect of teamwork, of group projects,
Yeah,
communication. When people start to ghost each other and not respond to messages or not talk about where it is that they're stuck and kind of leave it till the last minute, it is the worst thing ever. And it's literally the reason why a lot of these projects go wrong, because the last day will come or last 2 days will come and then you'll ask, hey guys, where's the login page that you guys were working on? And the answer is, oh, I was stuck and I didn't know what to do.
yeah,
Now you're scrambling. Now it makes everything 100 times more stressful, 100 times
mm,
more difficult, because now you have to kind of, it almost turns into tech, not tech backlog. And as you know, working from a tech backlog perspective is difficult within itself, because now you have to implement it into your working solution. So that communication aspect, incredibly important. Then the unclear expectations. One thing that I learned from my placement and internship was setting expectations early and making sure they're clear and understanding expectations. So when you're working on a project, ask if it's your lecturer, if you don't understand, whatever it is, go through your brief, find out what the expectations are. Okay, cool. By the end of this, we need to deliver a working website that does so and so. We need to deliver a working system that does so and so, right? That lack of clarity could cause you to do something completely over-engineered. So you have a completely convoluted solution, or you could have a solution that is not what's expected. So now you're losing marks, you're losing, the opportunity to do well within your university. Your perception is now damaged, right?
mhm,
Because you've not been able to achieve the work that was set to you because you didn't understand the expectations 100%. So
yeah,
in that environment where, this is also advice for people outside of school are working on group projects, if they're internship for the first time, if it's their placement for the first time, whatever, right? Setting expectations and understanding your expectations are incredibly important.
yeah,
Understand them, set them correctly, be realistic. Don't, be like, oh, okay, they asked us to make a website, but what if that website can be ChatGPT 7.0? No. Listen, it says make a library website, make a library website. If you want to
yeah,
introduce features to it down the line, have a chat with your group, see how that works. That
mm,
communication and expectation, kind of a topic could go on forever. But
mhm,
once you understand the bare bones, you're sorted. And
yeah.
I'll let you go next, Evangelos.
Before we even dive into the next point, I've had that experience in every single year of university where you get assigned a group, and then that one
Yeah.
person disappears from the start, and then when it's one day before you need to submit the assignment or you need to present the presentation, he pops back up or she pops back up and goes, "Hi guys, what's the situation? Where's the work?"
Oh,
And
I
I
don't
want
know.
to take that person's neck and just wring them out like a towel because it's the most annoying thing. Like throughout the whole 4 weeks, you're
Yeah,
WhatsApping them, Discording them, you're asking them, "Are you stuck on the work? Do you need some help?" You're trying to basically hold their hand, which you shouldn't be doing in group projects, but it's a team effort, so you're trying to make sure everybody's getting a good grade. But when they're not
yeah.
responding, it is the absolute worst thing in the world. And
Oh, son.
you're going to university, you're probably going to experience that. So just don't be surprised by that.
Hmm.
We give it a little bit early before we do, but if you can, try and find out the tryhards in your group and group with them because you'll have a much more easier time with these group projects if compared to if
Without
you
a
leave
doubt.
last minute.
You gotta love
But
them tryhards. They really do. They really do they really are the best teammates. Especially when you
yeah,
guys all have the same mindset. Okay, cool, we want to do well. Because there's always like you always meet the people in uni who are like, oh, like, I could just pass, I'm gonna be okay.
yeah,
I don't want to just pass, bro. All right.
no,
I
you're not on that.
wanna get first. I wanna get a high 2-1, whatever. But
Exactly.
so find people. That's another one for kind of setting, the kind of linking up with groups and stuff. Find people with similar mindsets.
Yeah,
So important. Um,
I'll go on
I'll
to the
leave it
next.
to you.
I think the last point, which is actually isn't on our list, but I think it's
Mm,
what's the word? How can I put this together? It's the mismatch of skill level, if I'm being honest. Because again, in my first, second, and third year of university, I've been paired up in groups where my standard of my quality of work is much higher compared to someone else's. I mean, when it comes
mm,
to our weekly meetings to review that work, and I see
Mhm.
that he has ChatGPT the whole word because he's using vocabulary from the 18th century, and I'm thinking, I've
Ugh,
never heard you use that word in your life. And when I'm comparing it to
yeah.
mine, it's very annoying because when it comes to putting the work together, it just makes it look like a whole mess of a submission. And that is a common problem I see with group projects, especially at university, because I know I'm not the only one who's what's the word? Who's experienced that, to so to say. Have you?
Mhm. Experience kind of the mismatch. Oh, bro.
Like you're
Oh, bro.
working with some, like
Yeah,
your
definitely.
quality work is in one, and then someone else's is just they've sat up the night before till 4 a.m. copying and pasting from the last article they
Yeah.
read. It's the most annoying thing ever.
It it is one of the most annoying things, I must say. Yeah, honestly, I think the it grinds my gears when I think about it. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, there's been an instance where somebody's kind of like just chat GPT'd the whole section and they've put it in the piece of work on the last day, and I was just like, bro,
It's the most
just
annoying thing
why?
ever.
Just why? Because if you would have told me, I would have done the work. I'm more than happy to do the work,
Yeah,
but because they've waited till the last day, we've kind of had to scramble, and it ended up kind of limiting the grade we got. Don't get me wrong,
yeah,
it wasn't a bad grade because the rest of the work that we did carried quite a lot,
hmm
but it definitely limited our potential, which
yeah,
is something that I never want to experience again. And since that day, I've kind of just said, "Cool, I'm never doing this random group work thing again." Like I want to understand the people that I'm working with,
hmm
understand what makes them tick, what type of people are they, do they care about their work, etc., etc. And to be fair, I've always kind of worked with the same people when it comes to group
yeah,
projects. They're same people. I think
yeah.
one of them graduated last year, but other than that, same people every time.
That's a great hack to have. If you can keep your
Yeah,
circle that is tight and reliable, it'll make your uni
exactly.
experience so much easier. So much easier.
Oh, oh. Man, shout out Warris and Connor, mate. Love those guys. Love those guys. Anyways, and that, do you wanna introduce the next one?
Yeah, so we'll go into the next section, which is how to handle difficult teammates. And you will experience at least one of these at some point within your university career, or even in your
Mhm,
professional career as well. So the first one will be the slacker, and we've already kind of touched upon that earlier, but we'll dive a little bit
mhm,
deeper. So usually the slacker is usually the person who he's slow to hand in his work. The quality of the work really isn't great either. And it seems to be that the slacker is usually the one who seems to have been forced to do his degree. So he's usually the one who has
mhm,
no passion for software engineering, doesn't really care about coding, which is fine, I guess, in a general aspect of things. But when it comes to working within a team, you want everybody to be pulling their socks, to be pulling their weight. And it can make working in a group a little bit more difficult when you have a slacker on your team. So I
yeah,
found in my experience, the best way to try and mitigate that is trying to motivate them in some sort of way. It can be difficult,
mhm,
especially if it's the first time you've met them, but trying to
mhm,
motivate them through maybe giving them work that isn't as demanding as everybody else's who may have been who may be technically capable to complete the
mhm,
work. That was one technique I used. Another way was trying to make the role seem a little bit more fun than it is. So you kind of treat them like a child in a way, but not in a condescending way. So maybe leaving them in charge of the wireframes, which is I'd like to say is a fun process. You get to make designs, use your creativity and imagination, and just trying to
mhm,
make the role that you're assigning them a bit more fun than it initially could be on paper. Have you had
yeah.
any experience hackers?
Oh,
That's about how.
yeah. I've had an interesting experience with slackers, and kind of what I have learned as
Mhm.
a way to kind of get them into the flow of things is kind of just like a way of like I like to call it overcrowded pair programming, right?
Yeah.
In which we're pair programming, right? So I'm working with them, we're working on a solution,
Mhm.
but I'm doing the work, but we're using our own minds, right? Because
Yeah.
now they're seeing. So now there's two minds attacking a problem, and they're seeing me implement this.
Yeah.
They usually feel like, oh, I want to implement this. Like I thought of this. Like, I want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that way, it's kind of like a weird reverse psychology. It's worked on every occasion, I must say.
I
Kind of
know
just,
that. Yeah.
just, oh yeah, it's a good idea. Let me put that in. They are
Yeah.
going to want to implement that because they've thought of something. You've pushed them to think of something. They've thought about it, and now they want to be the one who implements it, so they get the glory, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you kind of be like, oh, okay, do you want to do the work? Oh, okay, cool. You do your thing. Then I can go back to my task, right? So that's one way I found to motivate slackers. Another is just have that conversation with them, like, hey, we're trying to complete our work here. Understandably, you don't want to be here. Understandably, you don't want to do this work, but it needs to
Yeah.
get done. As long as you can do your bit, which will 9 times out of 10 be like a bit that isn't as serious. But once you can
Yeah.
do your bit, we can then move on to the next stage, the next step, and potentially get a good grade, boosting your grade because we're all getting the same marks here, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, unis have done a good job, especially mine, because we have like this whole thing where like you rate your colleagues like at the end of a group assignment, and
Yeah. I've had
based on our rating, like their grade gets affected. So
yeah.
if somebody's doing no work and you can justify it, like, okay, cool, they're not doing any work. We've asked them, they haven't achieved what we wanted them to achieve.
Yeah.
Everyone else might get a first, but this person might get 2-1 or 2-2 because they didn't do their work, and everyone can attest to it.
Yeah. And that's a good aspect unis are doing because it makes sure that one person isn't the downfall of a whole project, which can just
Yeah,
mess the whole experience as a whole. But yeah,
exactly.
I'll take that point on board. Okay, cool. So do you want to go on to the next point, which we've touched on before, but we'll go deeper into as well?
How to have tough conversations, man. You have to be able to call out bad behavior, and that sounds so like primary school teacherish, but you need to have that communication aspect. It all boils down to communication. All of it, like everything, boils down to communication.
Yeah.
Have those discussions with your colleagues, right? Hey, you're not doing any work. You're not
Yeah.
even talking in a Discord channel. What's going on? How can I support you as a team member? This is just not on. You're affecting my grade. You're affecting my work. You're affecting our workflow. Be honest. Have those conversations because maybe the person who's doing it may not think it's that deep or it's that serious. Maybe they think, oh, like, I've done this before. It's not, it's nothing. No, have those conversations. Be stern, be polite, but be stern.
Yeah.
There's no need for you guys to have a big, massive fight or an argument. Understand where they're coming from. And then based on that, go from there. Okay, cool. You're having a tough time. Maybe you don't understand what's going on. Okay, cool. I can help you with that. They can help
Mm.
you with that. Or like we can make this task a lot easier. We can give you the easy work, but have those conversations is so
Mhm.
incredibly important. And politely calling out bad behavior sounds so teacherish, but you need to. And if there's no change, then the conversation needs to be had with your lecturers, right? You've talked to them, you've gotten nowhere. Your lecturers are there for a reason. Your course leaders are there. Hey, this person's not pulling his weight. We've had multiple conversations. Can we just remove him from the group and then we can carry on with the work? He's starting to affect our workflow. He's affecting productivity of the group.
Mhm.
There'll be lecturers that will understand and be like, okay, cool. Perpetrator, you're out. Guys, you crack on. I'll keep it in mind when marking your work, right?
Yeah.
So you can only do so much, right? But what you can do is put yourself in a better position by calling out this stuff. Staying silent and talking to your other colleagues about it. Oh, person A is not doing their work again. Oh, I hate person A, person A, rah, rah, rah. No, right? Have those conversations with them, with your lecturer, have your team back you, and there should be
Mm.
no problem at all. I will let you talk about the worst one, in my opinion. Evangelos?
We have two left, to be fair. I'm not sure which one, if you're talking about the ghost or
We
the
have
chat
two
GPT.
left.
Yeah, which one was you talking about?
Oh my days! Yeah, you just reminded me. We got to chat. Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay, 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 okay. Okay.
the chat
You
GPT.
can talk about the one that I hate the most.
The chat GPT. Yeah. So
No,
this
the
one
one
is
before that.
the ghoster. The
Uh,
ghoster is. I'm not sure which one's worse, the ghoster or the chat GPT. Yeah, because at least the chat
I
GPT.
personally, uh,
Okay, fair. The ghoster is the one who, when you're assigning groups and the lecturer is sorting out the groups, who's going to be where. He's the one he's present for the first one, or she. Let's not discriminate. But throughout the whole workflow, throughout the whole development process, they are nowhere to be seen. They're a complete ghost to everyone. You can't reach them on WhatsApp, Discord. You somehow never see them in class. And they just somehow turn up a day before the presentation or when the work's due. And of course, they're asking, where's my workload? What should I do? How can I help you guys? And as you can imagine, if you're working within a team, you're putting all that hard work, all that sweat, all that blood into building the project, into doing the assignments, those late nights, and you have someone who's trying to basically steal all the glory for your hard work. It can be incredibly annoying, and that's me putting it lightly, if I'm being honest with you. And I've been faced with a few of them during my university career, and the
Mm.
strategy I had for that was firstly trying to identifying them early allows you the opportunity to give them the work that's least important within your group. So if that work isn't done by the time the assignment is due, it won't affect your grade too much. So it kind of
Mhm.
saves you there. And basically, it's all about cutting your losses early. So understanding what work, what assignment, what part of the project can you give to them that if it's not done to the standard you're expecting, or if it's not complete as a whole, it won't bring your group project grade down as a whole, detrimenting everybody involved. What is your
Mhm.
experience with the ghoster?
Ghoster, the ghoster, the ghost. Boy, I hate the ghoster. They to me honestly, I think they're the worst person on this list because it's that whole idea of coming last minute and saying, "Oh, guys, like because the reason they do that is because when the lecturer asks, this person has said you've done no work, this person, then they'll say, "But I asked,
Yeah,
what can I do to help?" And
exactly.
that grinds my gears because you've now done it in detriment to the whole team. You
Yeah,
know that you've done no work. You know you've not been able to perform. You
yeah,
know that you've negatively impacted our grade because you haven't done any work. And when it's time to take accountability, when it's time to take responsibility, you just push it onto others. Oh, I asked, but they didn't, so no. Worst
gas.
person ever. Worst person ever. And you know what? Again, it's one of those things where you recognize it early. Cool. I've seen the class. I know who comes in regularly. I know who communicates in the class Discord. I know
Mhm.
the people who are active on LinkedIn, so and so, these platforms, that are all about education. You're not on there. You're not in class. I'm not
Mhm.
working with you. That's kind of my
No,
my my minimum. I know you're not going to be able to participate. I know you don't have a relationship with any of the lecturers, etc., etc. You are not
mhm.
to be trusted. So I will not work with you.
Yeah,
I can talk about the ghoster forever. I really, really hate the ghoster. Um, if you are a ghoster, please stay away from me. If you're an ex ghost if you're an ex ghoster, thank you so much for making the change. Keep it up, keep working. But yeah, I can't. I hate ghosters.
all
To be
right.
fair, I say stay away from me. I got about a month or two left of uni, so I'm kind of chilling. But
So we got the
all right.
last one.
The last one,
True. I'll let you dive into that one. The Chat GPT.
yeah,
Yeah,
the Chat GPTer, aka the Chat
yeah,
GPT warrior,
that's the one.
aka GPT zero because there's zero. Yeah, I you can kind of you already know the type of people who that is. Don't get me wrong. I am a massive believer that AI is an incredible tool that can be used to not only massively increase and better your workflow, but also to automate a lot of tasks that were long before, such as write tests, etc., or whatever, right?
Yeah,
However, those people that will wait last minute and be like, "Yeah, I did the work. I did all this work. I've been grinding," and you see their work and it's ChatGPT entirely. It grinds my gears. I cannot stand it. They're just ChatGPT warriors. They're the worst. Again, I love AI. I'm not one of those people that's AI oblivious. I use AI regularly in my day to day, again, to automate processes, to help me when I'm troubleshooting. But those people that would just be like, okay, cool. I need to make a back end that does this, this, and this. Hey, ChatGPT, can you do that? No. No, no, no. Because now you're going to implement something that you don't know how to use correctly into our work. I remember first dealing with sessions and cookies
yeah,
when working with Flask. and it was part of a group project. And somebody had just, it was actually a hackathon previously, not the one we went to. It was one before that, right? Because we went to a hackathon together some time ago. It was one before that where somebody had just gone. We'd created a solution. They were like, "Oh, let's implement cookies." Cool. They've gone to ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, how can I implement cookies here? They implemented. They just copy and pasted it right into our code, which caused problems further down the line,
Mhm.
but nobody knew how to resolve those problems because none of us were really proficient with using cookies and sessions.
Yeah.
So we were all stuck, which meant even after we completed our solution, we spent a lot of time beforehanding, right? Panicking and saying, "Oh, what do we do here? Why is this messed up? So our database doesn't work anymore. This doesn't work anymore. We can't get users anymore." And the person who's done it is like, "Oh yeah, no, I did it, but I don't know how to resolve it. I don't know how to. I can see that you still left the ChatGPT comments in there, mate. I
Ah,
can see
dude.
it. It's
And you can
there,
tell when
right?
someone's ChatGPT'd it because it has 1,500 comments for a script that
Oh,
has 2 lines. And you can, buddy, at least,
honestly,
come on.
honestly, even with like text work, right? When you've got like a 10,000 word whatever to write, right? You see them dashes, them long dashes. Yeah, the British language does not use that, right? I know, I know you ChatGPT it because I never see that in any British text, right? So it's talking, it's using that that American lingo, right?
Yeah.
We're not running that. Yeah, get that away. I'm not doing that. No, I can't stand it. Yeah, no chance. So yeah, okay. Sorry, that was a brief rant about ChatGPT warriors. Those guys and the ghosters really get my blood going.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Um, but
And there's
you know,
there's two ways when you can usually tell if someone's ChatGPT'd something. It's one where they're using American spelling, so they're using analyze but with a Z. They're using summarize but with
hold
a
on.
Z. Yeah, and you can just tell the ChatGPT that. And the second one is when they're using words with ridiculous syllables, like they've never said that word in their life, and you can just tell.
I know
So
you never said colloquialism. I know that's never been a part of your lingo. Why are you
that
just
person
busting out?
can't even say it, but somehow you used it in your document. Incredible, incredible.
Honestly,
So the
honestly.
ChatGPT, how would we go about trying to mitigate that type of teammate? Would you say?
Those regular check-ins, right? Those morning, those stand-ups, those team meetings, you know, as much as you should spend time um, talking about updates, talk about where you're
Mhm.
struggling. And if you are struggling, let's have a look at each other's code, let's work on it together, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of more to limit your use of ChatGPT from a perspective of you have this person available that knows how to do things, right? In terms of just straight, there's a person here that might do it,
Hmm.
code reviews, right? I've been part of group projects where we've said, guys, cool, I want to implement this feature. Okay, let's jump on a quick 5-10 minute call. We'll do a quick code review. Let's see how it works. Let's see, just in case, etc., etc. This is when I was working with an old colleague of mine on a hackathon project, and
Yeah.
he wanted to implement a large scale solution, and I didn't know how it worked. So we go over, we discuss the solution, go everything. We have a look at the code. Let's both understand it end to end before implementing it, right?
Mhm.
Because if we jump on a call and you don't know what line 7 does, but you've got 35 lines in there, right? It's not going in the code because that's just going to lead to problems down the
Yeah.
line. You know what I mean? So them code reviews, I think, are incredibly important for mitigating that risk.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think we've covered the main style of difficult teammates that you're likely to face. So the next
Hmm.
and the final topic would be, we have 4 points in this, would be setting you up for success with your group projects. Because at uni or at work, certainly, you're going to face these projects where you're working with multiple people, especially with software engineering. So the
Hmm.
first point I would say, which greatly benefited me, and I'm sure it benefited you as well, was clearly defining the roles, deadlines, and expectations from the very jump. It's kind of like a sat nav. It kind of sets you up for success. It helps you know where you're going, where what you're expecting to have completed by a certain topic. So by the time the deadline comes round or near the deadline, you understand how far you are from the finish line, and you're not rushing to complete any work, because when you're
Yeah.
rushing, quality goes out the window, and that's when the cheap chat GPTs start to come into the room and start to dance all over the parade. So I think definitely defining your roles in the aspect of making sure that you're giving the work to people who are competent to do it. So if you have the slacker, for example, it probably wouldn't be a good idea to give them the task of configuring the backend, because 9 times out of 10 they're not going to do it. They can't. They're not motivated to do the easy parts, let alone the hard parts. So understanding how to efficiently assign those roles, given the easy work, the not so important work, to the slackers, to the ghosters, setting deadlines to make sure that everybody's being accountable and responsible for the work. And at the end of the day, to make sure that the complete assignment will be done by the time the deadline comes around. And then also expectations from each individual within the role. So if you have a slacker, you're probably going to expect his work not to be great. So there's going to be a chance where you probably have to sit down with him and review the work and understand that you're probably going to have to make some changes to make sure that the quality of work is up to the standard that the whole group would like. And then
Mhm.
understanding that someone who is eager, who is always on LinkedIn, who's always does his assignments on time, you can expect him to kind of just get on with the task that you assign him. So you wouldn't have to babysit him as much as you would someone else. So
Yeah.
just to summarize, we'll definitely focus on defining your roles from the start, making sure the deadlines are nice, clear, and available for everybody to see, and also having expectations set for the various people in your group with the different skill levels that you're expecting from them. And I'll
Mhm.
pass to the next point, David.
Yeah, this is actually one of my more favorite points is tracking projects, on whatever tool you like to use, Notepad, Jira. I personally use Trello, and I always put people on because it's free and it works really, really well. Setting, kind of setting tasks, right, and tracking that through your entire workflow makes things incredibly easy down the line, because now okay, cool, we've got this feature, this feature, this feature, this feature, we're here with that, we're here with that. That also makes it easier for capturing these details towards the end of your assignment, right? Okay, cool, we was not able to complete this, but we was able to complete all of this, right? So that ability to track projects, right, makes it so much easier, not only for yourself but for the team. Even when you're in position, because you'll always be in a position where you'll be like, okay, cool, we've done all the work, let's
Mhm.
relax a bit. No, check that project that you were tracking on Trello. Check Jira. Let's see what's in the backlog. Let's work on that. So yeah, tracking projects on whatever app you use is incredibly important.
Yeah. Point number three, which is probably one of the most crucial points that we'll bring up, is having a clear communication channel. So obviously, we've obviously talked about the tracking of projects to make sure everybody knows what they're doing, defining the roles, deadlines, and expectations. But you need to make sure that everybody has the ability to communicate with everyone, because 9 times out of 10, with new group projects, everybody's going to be working with everyone. So people are going to need certain information, certain tasks to be done from certain people, and you just need to make sure that you have a channel where everybody can communicate efficiently and everybody's on the same page, because the last thing you want is having six people sharing information on a private message, because it just makes sharing information a whole lot harder than it needs to be. So picking a communication channel like something like Discord or WhatsApp is something I use, because I know everybody within my group and course uses WhatsApp. So it's nice and simple, just set up the group chat. And it's easy just to make sure that everybody has the same information, so nobody's asking the same questions twice or just wasting time in terms of transferring information, I would say.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'd say that. And then David, for the last point.
Yes, weekly or bi-weekly meetings to track progress. Those progress tracking meetings are so important.
Yeah.
Um, let's see where we're at as a team. Let's see what we need to work on to go further. Let's see what we're struggling with. And if you have anything to say it within those meetings, right? They're not just there for no reason. And setting those will allow for that space of communication. It will allow for you to identify what's the struggle, what are the difficult aspects and points of this work. How much progress have we made? As much as it can be as much as it can be somewhere to point out the negatives, it can also be a place to point out positives. Okay, cool guys, we've done really well. This feature that we decided to work on last minute is working perfectly, and our solution's great. You know, those meetings will it's just that clear dialogue of communication on a weekly basis on where your project is very, very beneficial.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And even having those meetings just to update the team on how, like you
Yeah,
said, the
exactly.
picture we had is working really well. We can do a lot for morale, and that can make all the difference between getting a good grade and a great grade at the end of the day, because you just have
Yeah.
that added incentive of motivation. You're doing something right, so you want to do more. So yeah, that's a definitely good point. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So we've covered what are group projects. We've covered why you have group projects at university. We've
Yeah.
identified a couple of reasons why they go wrong. We've
Mhm.
talked about the difficult teammates that you can face and you will face within university and your career, whatever career you choose to go to. And then
Mhm.
we've also defined how to set yourself up for success within any group projects that you're covering. So I
Mhm.
think that is enough for us to talk about. We've rambled on for a good 42, 40 odd minutes. I think we've
We
shared
have.
enough for them to add. Unless you have anything else to add, David, I'm going to sign us off and get ready for the next one.
Um. No, I think we've rambled on enough.
Yeah. No words of
Uh,
wisdom.
any words of wisdom? Wow, that's a good one. Ooh, yes, words
Go.
of wisdom. Make the future you proud of what you did in the past, right? So whatever it is that you're working towards, right, you want that person to look back and say, "Well done, David. Well done, Evangelos, for putting in that time and effort into this aspect that made
Yeah,
life easier for me in the future."
definitely.
But
Very,
that was on the that's from the dome.
that was freestyle, so I like it. Okay, cool. So I'll sum up. So once again, thank you for tuning into the Big Byte Energy podcast. I've been Evangelos and that has been David. And we hope to see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.